Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. Today, I have with me Dr. Mahan Rishi Singh Khalsa. He is a doctor of chiropractic. He's a Kundalini master, an herbal nutritionalist, a certified polarity therapist. He's also a crystal and aromatherapy healer, as well as a bioacoustic sound medicine healer, and so much more. Did I mention that he is my favorite teacher of all lifetimes? In 1988, Mahan Rishi and his wife Nirbakar began the Khalsa Healing Arts Yoga and Meditation Center in Yardley, Pennsylvania. They also now run a Kundalini teacher's training course, or a school basically, so you might want to check them out if you're interested in becoming a certified Kundalini teacher. He has been studying yoga and meditation since the early 70s, and he has studied all over the world with many yoga masters and spiritual healers for over 40 years. It's pretty impressive. Mahan Rishi is skilled in the art of teaching the ancient wisdom of yoga and meditation and how to apply these principles into our everyday lives. He has helped me immensely over the years. His vision is for each of his students to have an experience of vital energy, great joy, and liberating peace. He has guided me in all of these areas and toward self-realization and illumination through universal love and understanding. I met Mahan Rishi and Nirbakar in the late 80s, and what I believe it was their first retreat, walking between heaven and earth. That was my real beginning to yoga and meditation. So although I've studied myself with many teachers and mentors and shamans and other yogis, Mahan Rishi by far and his wife Nirbakar are the greatest of all times. I have myself 30 years later, he still teaches me so much. So it is with great pride, honor, and joy that I get to introduce to you today. You know I love you, Mahan Rishi. Thanks so much for agreeing to visit with us. Today we're going to speak on, you're welcome. And the topic we're speaking on today is nutrition, food as medicine, basically. So there you go.
Well, you know, it's a huge ocean of knowledge and wisdom we can tap into, and you know, and with that understanding, as I continue to explore and research different ways that we can heal ourselves, there are so many. We have access to numerous ways of healing ourselves through food, and realizing the power of food and how we can continue to create vitality and well-being through healthy food choices. So when we are approaching ourselves around food, food is a pretty hot topic for people, and let's say charged topic. People get very attached to their food choices, and we were brought up in a particular way. No matter what the culture is, each culture has a particular idea on what's good to eat and basically the norm for what people are eating. And so when I visited different countries, it's very fascinating to see what people are eating, and understanding that what a lot of people are eating is really not healthy for them. So in approaching food and in approaching healing is not only the foods that we are incorporating and bringing into our food spectrum, but also the foods that we want to let go of. And so when we are doing cleanses per se, cleanses are an opportunity for us to really look at those things, look at those foods that may not be good for us, and beginning to drop those and allowing our bodies to heal. So what I've found with pretty much everyone, probably everybody, is eating something that's creating an inflammatory reaction in the body. Now, of course, there's the traditional ones, like wheat products, gluten, sugar, dairy, oftentimes soy, corn, meat, whatever. A lot of these are creating reactions in the body. But there are also other foods too that may be reacting for people. So the idea is to get a sense of the foods that are actually vitalizing us and the foods that may be diminishing our vitality. And so in talking to people, I often speak about what are the main reasons why we eat biologically. I realize people are eating for many other reasons. People are eating mostly for other reasons.
Right. Then just basic survival, you mean?
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
to nourish.
Most people are eating out of craving and out of emotion. Well, people are always eating out of emotion, whether we realize it or not. All of our food choices are determined in many ways by our emotional state. Meaning that if we are choosing the traditional comfort foods like high wheat, dairy content type foods, pasta and breads, things like that, that seem to have this relaxing impact. So if people are choosing those foods, that's really a sign that the emotions and energies and stress levels are really out of balance. When people are choosing sprouts and lettuce, things like that, it's usually a sign that there's greater balance in the body. There aren't the cravings.
And better balance in the mind, wouldn't you say?
Well, that's actually what I mean. Yeah, better balance in the emotions.
Yeah.
And when we do that, we are really supporting ourselves in a much more sustainable way. I think that there's kind of a misunderstanding that people are eating. A lot of times people say, I'm eating to ground myself. Well, people aren't really necessarily eating to ground themselves. What's happening a lot of times is they're eating, and what it's doing is it's creating this dopamine reaction through these different neurotransmitters, which are relaxing to our biochemistry. And also eating a lot of times just helps to activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which is more calming and nurturing. And so, we really want to be mindful of what we're eating because it is having a long-term impact. A lot of times people will eat more impulsively and just due to a taste craving. And so even if you have like a small amount of sugar or whatever, then, I'm just going to have this sugar. I'm going to enjoy this taste now for 10 seconds. Well, that's going to create all types of different biochemical reactions in your body that are going to cascade and actually last for days. And so if you're eating a lot of sugar, there's a good chance you can't really make conscious decisions because you are activating parts of yourselves that are really out of balance. And so I find, out of everything that we're doing, things that you listed, I found some of the most powerful things that we can do is really go through cleanses and purification of our diet and eliminate those things that are creating toxic, inflammatory, depressive, congesting reactions in the body. Because when the body is being inflamed, there's going to be stress. And so a lot of times people are having, stress, and then they eat something that actually is going to magnify that stress. And then it just keeps going and going and going.
Yeah, it's like a negative domino effect.
Yeah. And so it just keeps activating that inflammation. And then that inflammation is going to create its own stress cycle in the body. And then people get caught in this stress cycle and try to relieve it through whatever, and just keep perpetuating it in different ways. I would say many people are living in silent sickness and or silent autoimmune conditions. And we're seeing more and more and more of this, where there's Hashimoto's, hypothyroid,
Wow.
lupus, diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, all these things. And just to know, these things don't just start like overnight. It takes years for these things to happen. A person doesn't have a cardiovascular event because of their lifestyle that particular day or the week before. These things have been working up.
Building up over time.
Over time. It actually will take decades. And so with the thyroid, people go for blood tests to check the thyroid levels, TSH and such. And, the TSH levels may come back, in normal range. We see that all the time, but I know there's an active process happening. And so, with the thyroid tissue itself, it oftentimes takes about 7 years of tissue damage in a thyroid before it's going to even show up in a blood test.
Whoa.
So people who are really attached to their bread and their gluten and all there's many factors that are at play to impact the thyroid or other glands.
For sure. And of those factors, I want to consider also being the thyroid gland at the throat chakra. Like we said, not everything comes from just one thing, right? Our health isn't just from our food. Our good health doesn't come just from our exercise, or bad health, lack of exercise. So I knew one person who had a thyroid situation, and we discussed that. And I said, what's going on with your self-talk or your ability to communicate openly and lovingly? And, maybe there's something to that as well, like talking about layers. So yes, food, absolutely for our health, but then that emotional thing, that piece, whether it's spiritual or psychological or emotional, all of that factors into most illnesses. Would you agree with that? Most diseases?
Yeah, for sure. We are multi-layered, multi-intricate, complex beings that we are an orchestra. We are a symphony of many dynamic forces, seen and unseen, on energetic levels, auric levels, pranic levels, as well as all the biochemical, gaseous, neurological activities that are happening. So, that's why, in approaching our health, we need to take a multi-dimensional approach rather than just a one-dimensional approach. And people tend to, being that people are busier and busier now, faster and faster, the pace of life, people want to get over with as fast as possible.
So quick. Yeah. How many products on the market for, take this pill and you'll magically have this wonderful result, and never really dealing with the underlying issues. I used to be super addicted to sugar, chocolate, especially chocolate, had to have chocolate like every night. I would sometimes throw chocolate in the trash because I was like, I've got to stop eating it. And minutes later, go back and take it out of the trash. I'm not even kidding you. I used to do that. And I started to explore, why am I craving this sweetness? And at that time, I was in a relationship that wasn't very loving or emotionally fulfilling to me. And so basically I was searching, it came to me through meditation, another avenue for our health and our well-being, that I was craving sweetness, but not in my taste buds, obviously, in my life, in my heart, in my mind. I was lacking that sweetness. So I was seeking it outwardly via chocolate until I dealt with that situation in my life. I'm not a chocoholic anymore at all.
Wow.
Yeah. Right. So, that psychological piece is so important as well. I remember you being one of my greatest teachers, really, when I was getting my master's degree in psychology. And we were talking about psychology and meditation. And I remember you said this to me. You said, with psychology, you take the room being in your mind and you rearrange the furniture. But with meditation, you get out of the room. And that has always stuck with me as being so powerful. It just, You've said it beautifully and best, and it's always stuck with me. And I don't just believe it. I live it. I've experienced it, and that is very true.
Yeah. Well, good. Yeah, meditation I find is a key element to all of this. And like you mentioned, we're constantly in a state of self-talk. So we're constantly trying to rearrange the furniture in our mind to, being our thoughts and our relationship to relationships and relationship to ourself. And, if we just keep moving these parts with the content of the mind, at the end of the day, it's still going to be the same living room, even though you might have moved the couch someplace else.
Mm.
With meditation, basically what we're cultivating is view, and that view gives us a more aerial, more panoramic vantage point of what's happening, and also a more transcendental space so that we're not caught in the turbulence of the mind. We can actually create a space that's more neutralized in nature, more less charged by the activities of the mind, and can actually create clear conscious discernment. So I find that's a big part of this, that stillness and meditation is key to building health and well-being. And look at these times there's very, very, very little. There's almost nothing in society that credentializes quiet and stillness or silence. It's all about busy and accomplishing and achieving and doing. And that's a big stressor on the immune system itself and our whole lives. And so it's not only, even if we're eating healthy in general, if our lives are overly busy, we're going to start craving food, because glucose, sugars in the body are going to be used up, and then the body is going to start craving sugar. And so it's really, in many ways, keeping balance.
Yeah. I learned from you, in addition to eating well, more so eating meditatively. So, with our immune system trying to calm that down, if you could maybe speak a little bit on eating meditation. So yes, make a good, healthy choice, but are you shoving that healthy choice down your throat while you're rushing off to a business meeting? That type of thing, creating maybe more stress, even though you're eating something healthy. Do you find that to be a situation in life for people? Not for you.
Yeah. I mean, well, everybody's rushing. And so, it's fascinating to observe people eating, because, not out of judgment, because of course I've done it myself, that, people wait for this food, there's craving for the food, there's expense in the food, all these things. And then they're like eating it and then watching whatever. And it's like, it's almost like this habitual automatic behavior of just putting it in and watching something else, and then done eating. So for a lot of people, there's the craving aspect. So the craving aspect is fulfilled, and then temporarily, and then people are full. So people are temporarily full. So they're like, okay, I ate. But what happens with that, people aren't really digesting or really assimilating that food well. And also, depending on when they're eating, that's another big one. I tend to not eat much in the morning, which may be contradictory to a lot of belief systems, but the morning time is really an elimination cycle. The earlier morning anyway, let's say up until about, let's say 10 o'clock or so. It's an elimination cycle. A basic circadian rhythm for normal living is the bowel movement will be around 8:30 or sometime in the early morning. And so you want to be flushing, you want to be clearing your system, you want to clear the kidneys, the liver, the colon, etc., before you start packing it in again. And so if you do that and really clear yourself out, your energy, I find, will actually be better. I begin the day with a quart of water and other teas and things, and just go from there. Then I, go into smoothies or whatever, and then salads. And then, another big piece of this is, digestion is happening. The main digestion is going to happen when the solar pranas are their strongest, because that's activating Agni chakra, the Manipura center of the body. So we want to be having the biggest meal usually around noon or 1 or so, and then really not eating late. And this is a big one for people because a lot of people are eating late, which is really an assimilation cycle time. It's not digestion. So if people are eating late, then there's going to be a tendency toward that food not being broken down in the same way, but also just taking a tremendous amount of energy from our cells. It takes 30% of our energy goes into digestion. I mean, that's a tremendous amount of energy. That's why we find when people do cleanses or whatever, that their energy really goes up.
Yeah.
During those,
especially at nighttime, you're trying to sleep. I can imagine if your body's trying to digest all this food and you're trying to sleep, how could you even really get substantial restful sleep?
Yeah, exactly. That's one reason people wake up tired in the morning, because their body's been digesting. And plus all the biochemical reactions that are happening, of course, depending on what people are eating, happening in the brain. So, and that's a big reason why people gain weight actually, is because they're eating too late. The assimilation cycle then has been, in that circadian rhythm, has been activated. So it's not really digestion time. Well, although the food, the body has to do something with that food in the stomach and in the intestines. So it's going to be working pretty hard to move that.
And when you think of the term breakfast, I always think of this, somehow I learned this along the way, that you're breaking your fast, right? So I don't eat past 7 p.m. That's my cutoff, 7 p.m. I don't eat past 7. And I have my bigger meal, so to speak, around 3, 4 o'clock at the latest. So I might have a couple little snacks before 7, maybe if I worked out, but so then I'm fasting basically from 7 p.m. until at least 7 a.m. And I drink a quart of lemon water first thing. As soon as I wake up, I drink one of these filled with lemon water. And that's my first thing. So I start that and I think about that. I'm like, no, I'm breaking my fast. Whenever we fast, we don't want to just like go run and eat a pizza or a cheesesteak, or, you know what I mean? Like it should be done slowly. And like you said, with respect to the digestive system and elimination.
Yeah, and a lot of times people, I guess depends on where you're at, which country you're in, but a lot of times people eat like cold. Well, I used to grow up on cold cereals, so cold cereals will actually shut down your gastric enzymes, shut down the ability for the liver to process like it could. And so, what I really recommend in the morning, one of the best things in the morning, I'll never forget telling my friends in Istanbul this, who would eat bread, cheese, and tomato. This is what a lot of them would eat in Turkey. And I said, eat steamed greens. I thought I was like crazy, but steamed greens, it's highly nutritious, it's warm, and it's really easy to digest. So you're going to get a really good impact of nutrients first thing in the morning. So that's, that could be one approach. Rather than eating heavy, I've really gotten away from grains, and grains tend to really stir up the gut. And in this day and age, we are learning the impact of grains and how that's impacting the permeability of the intestines and all the things that are getting through the intestinal wall into the system that are having a negative impact. And grains really do that. So
I was not aware of that.
Yeah, I have pretty much gotten away from grains, and well, of course, wheat, barley, wheat, oats.
Well, what about things like quinoa or farro, brown rice? You're saying that's interfering with the digestive?
Minimum.
Okay.
Yeah, I would do the minimum. Yeah.
Okay.
When people have like autoimmune things, or they're trying to get their health back, one of the first things is to really, of course, really let go of gluten foods. But then when you say stay away from gluten, then people go for all these non-gluten things, which are a lot of times junk food.
Processed.
Processed and not that healthy. And just, the gluten, of course, is highly disruptive to the intestinal flora. But these other grains are going to have impact also in terms of creating a lot of mucus, a lot of acid. They may not be as inflammatory in nature, but they can also just create sludge. And so the idea is to, looking at, going back to what we were talking about in the very beginning, why do we eat? I mean, one of the main reasons is sustainable fuel. And the other reason is to build and create, regenerate high quality vital cells. And we're made up of trillions of cells, from the skin to the bones to the brain, everything. And we want those cells to be as vital as possible, not dehydrated and not coated in mucus and candida and all these different things, but to be really vital. So when our cells are being diminished in their vitality, our energy is going to go down. And so I find that as we get away from the grains, we're going to really help ourselves on a cellular level by hopefully incorporating foods that are really high antioxidant, enzymatically dynamic, lots of micronutrients, et cetera, lots of fluids, healthy fluids that are going to, keep the body hydrated. And then, then the body's going to keep generating and creating. I mean, we're millions and millions of cells die every day, and we're creating millions and millions of cells every day as well. So to me, there's a lot of potential, and I'm optimistic that, and I've seen it over and over again. Like when we've done cleanses, people come in and they like drag themselves in, and then after a few weeks or so, they may be struggling in some ways because there's a withdrawal.
I know people experience headaches and just all kinds of mucus elimination.
Yeah, that's normal. I mean, and looking at things like coffee, we're all the coffee lovers. I'm sorry, but if you look at coffee and how many times when a person eliminates coffee, they get severe headaches. Well, you're not going to get headaches if you eliminate carrot juice, or if you eliminate like apple cider or whatever.
Right.
Coffee, I mean, these foods, when you eliminate them, it shows that there's just like a drug, that the body's become somewhat addicted or dependent on it, and in an unhealthy way.
Yeah, that's a withdrawal. So I read someplace where it said most Americans were considered, I think, one of the most obese countries. Obesity is rampant in our country, but that we're not underfed, we're undernourished. Those micronutrients that you're talking about. So eating a bunch of food, not getting the real nutrients that we need, causes us to keep craving because we didn't get the micronutrients, the vitamins, the minerals, and the enzymes from the food. So consequently, that's another reason why we might be craving just to eat anything, because I'm still not satiated. Let me shove this thing in my mouth. Let me eat that thing. Instead of, like you said, having greens, microgreens, or, things like that are actually that are nutrient rich and actually fuel the body in a healthy way, so that we then feel satiated because our body is nourished.
Yeah. Well, definitely that. And also most people are dehydrated. It is very, very common. So people misinterpret hunger for thirst, and when people should actually be drinking more. And if we're drinking more water and healthy fluids, teas and such, then we are helping the body purge and cleanse, and then everything starts functioning much more efficiently. So, again, in looking at food, why do we eat? We eat for sustainable fuel, and also for the generation of healthy cells. But we also want this food to move through us with incredible efficiency, rather than foods that hang out in the gut and they putrefy or they ferment. And if we look at the intestines, the food goes in through the mouth and down to the stomach, and that's the lower left quadrant. And it's going to sit there for a couple hours, go through digestive processes. Then it goes into the small intestine, and where it goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, about 15 feet or so. Well, if you look at it, it's all really compacted in. It's very convoluted. There's all kinds of different twists and turns. that this has to go through. And it's very easy for food to get caught. And then it has to go to the large intestine, for elimination, the waste. And that also, there's plenty of pockets there for it to get caught. And so, part of our eating is the transit time. We want the transit time to be, as efficient as possible. So foods that are hanging out, they're not putrefying or fermenting, creating toxic gas in the system and toxic biochemical reactions. And that's one reason the fluids are important. The fluids are going to just help the body move things along. And we want to be eating foods that are, have fiber in them.
Right. Whereas I think some people, when they're thirsty, they're like, oh, I'm thirsty. Let me go get a cup of coffee. Or I'm thirsty. I'll go have a soda. That type of thing, instead of the purity, obviously, of the water that's more cleansing.
Yeah,
I recommend
for sure.
people to drink 32 ounces first thing in the morning, and everybody looks at me like I'm crazy. And I'm like, maybe 32 ounces is too much, but I really don't think it is. I like to have a quart of water. And one of the things that I do, I'll share, and I always put my water in an Nalgene bottle. And I know it's plastic, and my husband and I have debates about this often, but I know I'm getting my 32 ounces. And I also do like prayer over it. Like I try to energize it with some positive vibes and gratitude. And then I'll just drink it down slowly. I'll just stand there and stare at the mountains or the sky and just, say little prayers and bless this person, bless those people, bless this water, bless this land. And then it becomes a spiritual practice that is equally, if not maybe more nourishing, if you will, to my soul, to my spirit.
Yeah. Well, that's beautiful, Sharon. That's a great practice. I mean, what I tell people oftentimes is like fill up the glass. This is 32 ounces.
Okay.
And just have these filled, and then make sure you've done 3 of them by 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm also big into drinking a quart first thing in the morning. I've noticed that, just watching my own energies as I go through the day, it's very normal for energies to go down, let's say around 3 o'clock. And there's many reasons for that. So then I drink another quart of water. I drink a lot of water. My energy will like instantaneously go up, because when we're dehydrated, our energy is going to go down, and it really affects our state of mind. I've been out in New Mexico in the mountains and been doing this for like over 40 years. And it's really dry and it's really hot. So every breath you take is dehydrating. And it's so fascinating that my mind starts getting really, really starts tripping out on strange things. It'll start going into these states where everything seems like really weird. The people look weird. This is weird, whatever. And then I go drink water, and it's like, wow, this is beautiful. Everybody's beautiful. And I realized that being dehydrated really activates the negative mind. And this is one of the things that, along with food, people are dosing themselves with sugar and are dehydrated and hypercaffeinating. And all these things are directly impacting our state of mind. And, like I said earlier, if a person is eating a lot of sugar, it's very difficult to make really conscious decisions on sugar. Just, people don't, it's not a legal drug. They just like you say, you can't make great decisions on alcohol or cocaine, or whatever.
Right.
You can't make great decisions on, a highly intoxicated sugar brain either.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's in everything, if I know a lot of people, they'll look at the labels at something that they're buying in the food store, and they'll look at that grid, it has these many carbs, this much protein, this much fat. And I say, don't even care about that. Look at the ingredients, the corn syrup that's in it, the sugars. And we know that on an ingredients label, the first things listed are what's the higher content and right. Sugar is in so many things, like in my opinion, unnecessarily. I'm like, why is sugar in some of these things? And they sneak it in. It's almost like, I don't know, that they're not caring that they're poisoning us, whoever is manufacturing these foods. It's got to be cheaper to make it without sugar. It's one less ingredient.
Well, it's about the taste, years ago when the government and different institutions said we need to decrease fat in the diet, they took the fat out of a lot of foods. And what did they replace it with? They replaced it with sugar.
Mm.
And so that's what's happened. There's just everything's got sugar in it. And that's one reason why, so many foods you wouldn't think of are just really addictive because of all the sugar. And people get people's taste buds get really like turned on, and this creates this whole reaction in the brain, and it feels like it's this incredible experience. And then then that craving, what goes up is going to come down. That's the thing about sugar. That's why we really, I made this change a while ago. I stay away from any concentrated form of sugar. It's just honey, agave, maple syrup, things like that. And once I got those things out of my brain, I realized, well, if I have them, my brain doesn't like it. And so what happens when you have concentrated sugars like that, your pancreas is going to secrete a lot of insulin. Whenever you bring in glucose, your body's going to secrete that insulin to deliver it to the cell. So it's constantly doing that. And when your insulin spikes, dopamines are going to spike, serotonin is going to spike, GABA is going to spike, acetylcholines are going to spike. And what happens? These things spike, then they crash, they go down. And so it's going to go up and down, up and down. So people keep doing sugar.
Keep trying to bring themselves up.
Yeah. I mean, it's just an addictive thing. And then the insulin, the pancreas starts to poop out and the body becomes insulin resistant. And the pancreas, our bodies are incredibly resilient, but the average American eats like 120 pounds of sugar a year.
Wow.
That statistic was a few years ago. It's probably even higher than that now. 120 pounds of sugar. And so if you're forcing your insulin levels to keep spiking like that, that's going to make your dopamines, all these other neurotransmitters spike, and then they're going to go down, up and down, up and down, up and down. And over time, these systems, they're very resilient, but they're going to reach a threshold, just like the adrenals who keep pushing the adrenals. Right. They will get fatigued. They can't keep secreting all these hormones that are important for our well-being. So I highly, this is like one of the number one things for our health and well-being is to stop over sugaring our bodies.
Yeah, I want to speak about sugar in things like oranges. I have a friend that buys these little gummy candies and a specific brand because it contains vitamin C. And I said, why don't you just eat an orange? And like, oh, oranges are full of sugar. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure that gummy is way worse for me than this little tangerine I'm about to eat. And yes, it has sugars in it. I get that. But can you explain like how that works within the body? Or maybe you agree, maybe we shouldn't be eating like bananas. I hear people say, oh, you shouldn't eat bananas, they're high in sugar. And I just can't wrap my mind around that concept that any fruit is going to be bad for me.
Yeah, well, I mean, yes, fruits are higher in sugar for sure, but they have all these other components.
Minerals, vitamins, right?
Yeah, exactly. When you're in fiber. So when you're eating those fruits, you're getting this multi-complex. I mean, it's taking millions of years to evolve this human body, and also these plants and all that are on the planet. And so they have the different components in them to help the body assimilate that. And so, and plus there's the water. The water is oftentimes distilled inside of the fruit and high water content vegetables. So it's not the same as just, drinking like Coke or soda. So, I think it's going to depend on a person's body in many ways. Let's say a person has a propensity toward a high candida, a lot of yeast in the gut, then yeah, they might want to decrease some of the fruit in their system so that they're not increasing that for a while. But in general, the sugar that you're going to get through fruits is going to be okay. And I mean, I could tell you a great story about this woman who she had a rash all over her body from a young age, like severe rash. And then I'm not sure if it was before her children or during having children, her body broke out in these severe big cysts. She said she had a cyst right in the front of her chest. It was so big, it was like a third breast.
Wow.
And so she was in bad shape. So just make a long story short, she went to all these different practitioners. And the last practitioner she went to, practitioner said, you need to filter your body. You need to really cleanse your body. And so she said, eat fruit, go on a fruit diet. She became basically a fruitarian. So she said within a day, she noticed on her feet things changing. And then, so she basically went into all kinds of fruits and lots of grapes. You probably heard of the grape diet, the grape cure. And so one part of the diet, you know, she had to eat 27 bananas a day for 7 days. 27 bananas a day for 7 days. She was down at Disney World. She had her child and she had in a stroller, and in the back of the stroller was packed with bananas because she was committed to doing this. Well, she said it cured her. Everything went away. The rash, the cysts, everything dissolved. And so, of course, I'd ask her, so what about your sugar, you know, your glycemic index and all that? She said it didn't go up. So, you know, I don't know if that would be true for everybody. I think some people, this sugar would go up for them. If there's a tendency toward diabetes, you might not want to do quite as much sugar or quite as many fruits. But fruits there's so much value in them. And especially in the summertime, I do a lot of fruit. The big staple in my diet. It's, you know, all that water coming through is cleansing, high antioxidants. We really want people moving toward a more antioxidant diet, which is protective of cells and your vitality. So yeah, I'm all in for fruit.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I always take those cuties with me when I go on a hike. You know, when I'm hiking, yes, I have all my water with me, but there's something about when I'm just, you know, like at that point, I'm just like, no, I'm going to eat an orange. And some people say, oh, I can't eat while I'm hiking. I'm like, well, I'm not really eating. I'm nourishing my body. I'm giving it that extra fuel to finish out, you know, the number of miles that I'm happen to do that day, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, rather than, I don't know. So this cleanse, you're doing something really exciting. It's beginning, I believe, September 18th. It's a course that you're doing on nutritional healing, I'll call it, but maybe I would love for you to talk more about that, and maybe also let our listeners know how they can reach you and to sign up for this course or to learn more about, or maybe just to have consultation with you. I love that you're speaking on in each individual's system and as a person, because there's a lot of things out there that say, well, everybody should do X, Y, or Z. And it's like, well, no, I mean, that might be good for some people. And I love that you brought that up, you know, with that woman, the fruitarian, that was good for her body, but maybe that number of bananas for another person could be detrimental. So I love that it's your viewpoint is more individualized and not like, you know, a quick fix for everybody. This is what's going to fix everybody. You know, or help everybody heal, because obviously, like you said, we're multi-complex dimensional individuals and each one unique.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we all do have our own biochemical individuality and such. I think there are some universal ways of approaching ourselves that will benefit most people. I think that, some people, let's say looking at wheat and gluten, some people have a dramatic reaction to it, like celiac disease or whatever, and really do react to wheat in a really overt symptomatic way. But most people will react to wheat and gluten on a subtle level. So, Arnold Ehret, I don't know if people have heard of Arnold Ehret. He was a radical. I mean, we were studying him like 40 years ago, and he was talking about this like in the 1920s. He was a German nutritionist. he wrote a book called Rational Fasting and also the Mucusless Diet Healing System. And he talked about it back then, about wheat, how detrimental wheat can be. And so I think there are foods that are generally good for us to stay away from, even though some people may not be reacting to them, in this really clinical, symptomatic way. But
Yes.
it is,
Like you said, it
yeah,
can build up over years, 8 years later.
yeah, yeah. And I think that's very, very, very true. I think most people live at a kind of a moderate level of health, but not a level of vitality. And when I say moderate level of health, I mean that that's not very symptomatic. They don't have a lot of aches and pains or autoimmune problems yet. But I see there's a tremendous amount of silent sickness out there that has not expressed itself. And so people can wait. And then what happens when they wait? They can keep indulging where they are and wait, and then have to turn to drugs or whatever to help decrease that pain, or else people can become active. And it's so much easier on the body to work on things on a preventative way rather than when it's symptomatic. Because once that cycle gets activated, once that condition happens, it's very difficult to really shift it. I mean, of course you can shift it, but it's much easier. Prevention, like what they say, an ounce of prevention is worth
It's
a
worth a
pound.
pound of cure. But absolutely, I try really hard. I'm pretty intuitive with my body. I mean, I'm not perfect at it, but I make it a practice to listen to my body. And I say when I teach people, this type of a practice, get keen on listening to your body's whispers, because you don't want it screaming at you. Right? We don't want this loud amplifications, okay, well, now it's completely obvious. And now, yes, medical intervention, maybe surgery, maybe all of these other invasive. Whereas if you're listening at a whispers level, you're like, okay, let me start to, work toward correcting it now before my body does scream at me and I'm in a more detrimental place.
Yeah. Well, that's a great analogy. Yeah. So with the cleanses, we offer a spring cleanse and a fall cleanse. Each one of those is 40 days. And the idea here is that we're actually making changes. 40 days is a long enough period that we can really begin to understand our body and our mind and emotions in relation to food. And we can actually start making some sustainable changes. So what I found, and I've just observed a lot of people with a lot of cleanses, that 99.9% of the time they do a cleanse. It could be a week, 2 weeks, or whatever, and they go through the cleanse, and then within a very short time they're back to their old eating habits.
I've seen it too.
It's like almost all the time. So when we are doing a cleanse, like the upcoming cleanse, we look at day 41. Okay, so it's a 40-day cleanse. We're looking at day 41, day 45. We're looking at day 50. We're looking at day 365. How are you going to actually sustain yourself in a really healthy way? And I've actually seen people do it. I have this one lady, she's done like 5 cleanses with us. She's like 85 years old now. And a lot of times people approach cleanses because they want to lose weight. Well, if you're going to continue to eat healthy after the cleanse, you'll continue to lose weight if that's what you want to do. And so she has continued to lose weight and just continued to become more vital as time goes on. I mean, it's an amazing thing to watch. Our age is chronological age is the most irrelevant aspect of aging. I mean, more relevant is biological aging, cellular aging, psychological aging, energetic aging that happens with people. And so we can be healthier, and I've seen it in people, and I've seen it in myself, healthier 10 years from now than we are today. And so our last spring cleanse, I put out, okay, this is a 10-year process, everybody. And so we went through 40 days. Okay, we're looking at day 41, or right from day 1. We're looking at day 45. Okay, folks, so we're looking at 10 years from now. And, it's amazing. I mean, the body is this amazing, amazingly engineered symphony of possibility. And I have worked with people, I've seen it. I worked with Swami Bua, who lived to 121, Bhante Dhammawara Mahatera, who lived to 110. These people were highly active. I went to Bhante Dhammawara. He, last time I saw him, I guess he was around 108. And after that, he was traveling from New Jersey. He went to Thailand. From Thailand, he went to London.
So great.
New York. From New York, he went to California, where he eventually passed in the back garden of the monastery, something like that. Swami Bua, he came to our center at 115, and we went to visit him in his apartment in New York. He was still walking and talking and doing everything, and he died at 121.
Wow.
So, we can really vitalize ourselves. So,
yeah, I agree. I say that all the time. I was like, our bodies, the human body seeks perfection, and it's just waiting for us to support it in that. Like, it wants to be perfect. It wants to be vital. It wants to rejuvenate itself. It wants to be energetic. And it's just like begging us, please drink that water, or please. And I love that you frame it 10 years from now, because in our culture, in our society, we've been conditioned to think, it has to be quick, or it can't, or it's not good, So I love that you're saying on day one, we're looking at day 41, or 10 years from now, to get that long-term view in there, in our consciousness, because that's real change. That's sustainable living.
Yeah. I mean, we don't want people suffering, and I see people, I say, you're probably going to live to around 85 or 90, most likely. Well, how do you want to spend those last 10 years, those last 5 years of your life? Are you want to be like, partially crippled, or even before that? Let's say they're in their 60s or so, and I can see now, well, it starts, I see it happening like late 30s and early 40s or so. People can really make a choice. People's energies are either gonna, be somewhat sustainable, but for a lot of people, they've been really involved with their families. They've come to neglect themselves, even if they were athletes before. They start to slowly go down. And I say, this is a time to choose, okay? This is a time to reclaim your health and vitality, so your energy can go up. And the thing that I love about this, the body is resilient. The body is creating new cells every second. And what kind of cells are we going to create? And so the idea with the cleanse is we are going 100% for creating really high vital cells that are energized and charged with all kinds of good nutrients. And so we get folks going in that particular direction. And then they just keep building and building and building and building on that momentum. And then people realize, okay, I want to live at this level of vitality. I don't want to go back to being numb and fatigued and drowsy. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing. I've experienced it myself.
Yeah, that's great. Now, for anybody wanting to do this cleanse with you and Nirbhakar, do you have to live in the proximity of Yardley, Pennsylvania? Is it all online? Is it partial? How is it? Like, I'm in California and you're in Pennsylvania, and if I wanted to do that, how would it be for me? What would my experience be like?
Yeah, well, it's all online now. We used to do all the cleanses in person, where we have people show up at our center and we have cooking demos. But now it's because of COVID and whatever, we moved the whole thing online, which has really worked well for people, because we have people coming from all over North America. And so what we do, we have meetings twice a week, where, let's say September 18th is the beginning, where I will talk about the cleanse and healing and eating. We do a check-in with everybody, and then Nirbhakar will do a food demo. So, let's say we'll be sitting here with me, and we chat for about an hour or so, and then we move it all into the kitchen with Nirbhakar, actually doing food demos. And so she'll do that on
For those of you who don't know, she is an amazing, amazing cook. I've learned a lot from her too about food and preparation, and yeah, she's amazing.
No, thanks, Sharon.
Mm.
Yeah, so it's very doable. We're there. We have a Facebook page for, it's a private Facebook page for the community. On our last cleanse, everybody 100% were involved. And so it's a collaborative effort because there's people who've done a lot of other cleanses. And so they have a lot of information to share as well. It's not all coming from us, it's coming from the community. People are sharing recipes. So I'm literally on the Facebook page every day for 40 days, sharing recipes and different inspirations. And plus everybody else is offering recipes. So it's like, even though we're not seeing each other physically, we are very connected. The community is really strong. And it's been extremely fulfilling. I mean, it almost seems like miraculous. On our last spring cleanse, somebody lost 100 points on her cholesterol.
Whoa.
Of course, people lose a lot of weight. Weight-wise, people usually lose between 10 and 30 pounds. There's all these things, triglycerides, all these things are balanced out, but really bigger than a lot of this is people begin to get a handle on their lives, and their lives haven't spun off. So a big part of this is helping people make friends with their kitchen again. Some people do not, I think because of COVID, people have spent more time in the kitchen, but we've had people who don't eat in the kitchen, don't cook very much. And so there's a lot of focus on food preparation and giving energy to that. I mean, our kitchen's an important place, and preparing your own food is really important. Some of it is preparing food, some of it is juicing or making smoothies.
Right.
But just putting energy into that and basically reclaiming the desire and the enthusiasm for being really healthy and vital.
Yeah. And to be supported by a community of people from basically at least across America, if not also around the world. Would you say that it's drastic if I were to sign up for that cleanse? Because I've never done one of your cleanses before. If I were to sign up for it, would it be drastic? Like day one, I have to basically empty my kitchen. I mean, my kitchen's pretty, but I have farro and I have quinoa and I have sprouted wheat bread. I don't eat much of any of that, but when I want it, I want it. And so, or if it supports a particular recipe. But so would you say that it's drastic and on day one, I'm going to be overwhelmed with, I can't do that. It's too much all at once.
Well, that's a very important statement. I mean, it's a very important question because it's all a state of mind. It's totally a state of mind. It's a mindset. We've seen people that come in from, you're probably living much more healthy than most people are in terms of food. And we have people who are eating all kinds of meat and coffee and sugar and donuts and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. They come in day one and they're on it. And because it's a mindset, it's totally a mindset. We have a mindset about what we're allowing ourselves to eat in certain ways. Then we move that mindset to another way of being around certain foods. And once we commit to that mindset, it's amazing what happens. I mean, I've done it myself. I mean, I grew up eating, all the junk you could possibly eat in America. I ate it. And then I moved into the ashram. It happened instantaneously. It was a new mindset. I just committed to that mindset and then, just continued evolving from there. So it's the hardest part of doing a cleanse is getting the mind in the position to want to do it and to commit to it. Once a person commits to it, it'll happen. Of course, there may be periods of some withdrawal, some cravings here and there, but there's so much support around it that it really doesn't become an issue. And, I mean, it's so fascinating to watch the process because, the first couple of weeks are basically the elimination time. So we are eliminating a lot of things, like all the wheat products, dairy products, all animal products, sugar, concentrated sugars, nightshades, different things like that. They're eliminated right off the bat.
Okay.
And so, sometimes people do react to that because it is a withdrawal. And so we tell people, oh, it's common. And like when I do parasite cleanses like once or twice a year, my body will react to that parasite cleanse where for a couple days, I'll feel fluish. I'll feel like sick somewhat because my body's purging that. And then, I get over it. And so it can be the same thing with the cleanse. You might feel, this happening, this sluggish malaise for a few days, but you will get over it. And I've seen this happen with, we've had helped navigate hundreds of people with cleanses. And so some people might be a few days, some people might be a week, some people might be a few weeks. They'll come back saying, no, my energy's still not happening. And then the next week it pops.
Wow.
And so, that happens. And also then we have like a week of liquids where we're just doing liquids. It could be smoothies or whatever. So actually, this is not that difficult of a cleanse. Tell you quite
Yeah, it
honestly.
doesn't sound that way now that I'm hearing it.
Yeah, it's not that hard. And but anyway, people think, oh, liquids. Can I just do liquids? Can I not be chewing all week or eating? Then people get into it, and it's like, wow, they feel great. They keep going. We're checking in again. Oh, I'm still doing liquids. I'm doing liquids for 2 weeks now, and so once people get into the mindset of it and commit to it, we find a way. And it's amazing how life supports us when we make that commitment, and it's not difficult actually.
Yeah, it doesn't sound it when I hear you explain it like that. And what it will do in so many ways, like you were talking about mental clarity. I'm thinking the immune system, especially nowadays, we really need to keep our immune system super strong. So bogging our systems down with garbage, basically, I call unhealthy foods garbage. In my mind, I just picture it as garbage. I'm like, that's garbage. Like, I don't want, I look at a donut and I think garbage. Like, I don't look at a donut and say, ooh, that looks good. I'm like, that's garbage. But eliminating the garbage from our systems, to increase our immune system, especially now. Always we should have a strong immune systems, but
Yes. Well, that's a big focus of this particular cleanse. And we could talk a lot about the fall cleanse. Part of it is making transition from the summer into the fall season, which is a big shift on the body. But really big, and the bigger picture of this is creating a really healthy state of being where we're going from summer, fall into winter, because in America we have 5 seasons, right? We have winter, spring, summer, fall, and the season of overindulgence, which starts October 31st, goes to January 1st, where people are inundated with all kinds of different quote unquote comfort foods, sweet foods, whatever, plus all the overactivity of parties, gatherings, events, and things like that. So people are assaulting their system, and then we go into winter. And winter is in many ways the most challenging season for the body to maintain homeostasis, if you're in a cold climate anyway. So, a big part of this is creating the discipline, a disciplined mind and body to go through this later fall, early winter season so that we can sustain a really healthy state and carry that into the next year. So, and also, I talked about this, long before COVID, that the tendency in the fall, of course, there's flus. So we've been having flus for like thousands of years, probably, right? And so there's a lot of ways to deal with the flus. There's flu shots, there's medications, there's whatever. But also there's a way of creating a really healthy internal environment so that your body is more able to deal with exposure. And then if you do have the flu, then your body can deal with the flu, its own way. And so our focus is really cultivating natural immunity, supportive immunity, through a lot of different healthy foods, eliminating the foods that don't support healthy immunity. And also we have a lot of different really healthy nutraceuticals and herbal formulas that we're incorporating in this cleanse to give people a really strong immune system.
wow, Mahan, Rishi, that is so awesome. All right, I'm signing up. Tell me and everyone else, maybe a website, your phone number. How can people sign up for this cleanse?
Okay. Well, if you go to our website, khalsahealing.com, that's KHALSA healing.com, and you go to the events page, you can see, a little bit of information about it. And there's a pricing page there. And so you click on that, and then you're able to sign up. And then what happens, we send people an intake form because we want to get a sense of where people are at
Okay.
with their health currently, what their goals are for the cleanse. So I have a better idea of how we're working. And then once we have that, we'll be sending things out. We'll be sending out the different herbal formulas. There's a lot of them. It's a lot. I mean, it's a very, there's a lot to the cleanse. And so there's a lot of moving parts to this.
Mhm.
And anyway, we're here to support everybody. So yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Khalsahealing.com.
Yep. Yep. Yeah.
KALSA healing.com.
Yep. Yep.
Terrific.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll be signing up.
All right, Sharon, it'll be great. It'll be awesome to have you.
Yeah, that'll be great. And to join a community, that's the thing that is really an additional thing that's valuable to me, is being in that community of people of, like-minded, especially when it comes to nutrition and health, because sometimes I do feel like, and I'm not a vegan, I'm not extreme, I don't think, but I am super health conscious. Sometimes I'll meet friends for lunch and I'll show up with my own lunch. We'll go to a restaurant, but I'll bring out my brown bag. I was like, I don't know, eating there. So I mean, a little bit, they laugh. I mean, I don't get teased by my friends, but I do often feel like I'm the odd person out when it comes to nutrition. So I'm excited about joining the community for sure. That's really another wonderful perk from my point of view.
I'm glad. I'm
Yeah.
glad. Yeah, great, Sharon. It is a group conscious effort. We all work hard together. We all learn from each other. And yeah.
That's great. I appreciate the time that you've taken to share all of your wisdom and, on this topic. I know you have a lot more wisdom and a lot more knowledge, but we'll have to do this again for sure.
Thank you, Sharon. It's a joy to be with you always. You're
Always.
a beautiful woman.
Brother.
Satnam. Peace to you.
Thanks.
We'll see you again.
Yes, you will.
Okay.
Bye.
Peace.
Peace. Hey, thanks for visiting my YouTube channel. If you liked this video, hit the like button. If you want more like it, subscribe. Thanks. Have a great day.